Hi, everyone. Caitlin Moore here. I am so excited to be doing the Magic Knight Rayearth podcast. However, unfortunately, we had some technical issues with the first episode, and that discussion has been lost. Sorry about that. We really tried to make it work, but we just couldn't. I think one of the key things we discussed, though, that carries through to the second episode is the role of girlhood, talking about how the younger female characters are depicted as very innocent, whereas Alcyone is like heavy makeup, uh, big tits, skimpy outfit. And that is kind of the biggest part of the conversation that we had that I just summed up very, very quickly. But that's kind of the thrust of it. Thank you for listening. And I really hope you enjoy the show. It's been a long time coming. Thanks. Hi, and welcome to Chatty AF, the Anime Feminist podcast. Today we are talking about the second half of the first half of Magic Knight Rayearth, episodes 11 to 20. I'm Caitlin. I am one of the managing editors of Anime Feminist. And today I have with me returning guest Megan and new to this watch-along, but perhaps, or a re-watch-along, I should say, perhaps someday returning guest Colleen.
Hello. Hi, it's Megan once again. Regular manga blogger. Seemingly regular appearances on this podcast, and not necessarily feeling the best after what we just watched.
Bummer.
And I am Colleen from Colleen's Manga Rex on YouTube. Also not feeling super great after what we just watched.
Let's just start right off with talking a little bit about the sub and the dub. So we talked about most of the notable cast members last episode. I don't think there's really anyone else of note who popped up this time.
Oh no, there's one, at least for me, and probably anyone else who grew up watching cartoons on Fox Kids, because Caldina's voice actress, Lenora Zan, is also Rogue from the 90s X-Men, and now currently X-Men 97.
Oh, does she do a proper Southern accent?
I mean, I'm not Southern, I can't judge her accuracy, but she's basically more or less doing the Rogue voice, and it's just nice to hear. She did do a few other anime dubs, but this is probably one of her most prominent roles.
Yeah, back in the day when they would translate Osaka dialect as Southern accents.
I mean, I guess it's better than going a Brooklyn accent, but that's neither here nor there.
Honestly, I like the Brooklyn accent. I think it's a more accurate comparison.
The only other notable difference is how the sub and the dub approach Inouva. In English, he's very gravelly, but if you listen to him in Japanese, he's got this very measured, handsome voice. It's basically like your standard Bishi voice. And I kind of wonder why they went with that in the dub.
So I actually did end up watching the dub for like the last 7 episodes, and I thought Inouva's voice was so funny. It just didn't seem right for him. And there was
I'm gonna have to check this out.
That was so funny to me, because the one episode where he's like disguised as Sarah and trying to like infiltrate their group and gets Ferio that way. There's this one really funny line delivery where he's going from the like, "Hello, I'm Sarah, and thank you for trying my medicinal herbs," and then all of a sudden he goes, "How would you like my?" It's just so funny going from that to the.
Yeah, it also doesn't help. Whoever voiced him is not one of the better actors in the dub. He's the one who falls most prey to the I have to stick to the lip flaps at all costs.
Yeah.
I did remember to pay attention to Emerald this episode. Anime News Network seems to be having some issues. I was going to look up his actor. But anyway, I did pay attention to, remember to pay attention specifically to Megumi Ogata playing Emerald this run. And it's really interesting because she sounds like a very typical, like, not squeaky, but like kind of high-voiced anime girl for a while, you know, the type. Like she's playing a specific character type.
Yeah, it's an unusually femme performance for an actress who even at that point was known for portraying lots of boys and butcher individuals.
But then when they killed Zagato and she screams, I was like, oh, right. That's Megumi Ogata. She's really good. She's really good, even when she's doing that kind of typical squeaky voice. Not squeaky. It's not really squeaky, but it, you know, when she is doing that typical higher register feminine anime voice.
The little fluttery angel voice.
Fluttery is a good descriptor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a whole lot to say about the sub and dub this time around. We've got Akio Otsuka now. I can't remember which one he voiced because Anime News Network is down.
I think he was Wyndham.
Here we go. Oh, there we go. Now it's up.
He was definitely one of the rune gods, which is fitting.
Yes.
The other thing about the dub that I thought was semi-funny was the guy who was playing Zagato kind of went for like a Batman voice. Like before the Batman voice was really a thing, but it was so like, I'm Batman. It was like...
And it is kind of him trying to do what his Japanese counterpart was doing, but that's Lex Lang. You don't hear him much in dubs anymore outside of the new Lupin ones, because he's Goemon.
Was he doing the Batman voice in Lupin?
No, Goemon does not sound like that. But now that you've said that, I'm never going to be able to unhear it.
It's so Batman.
Okay, wait. So for Zagato, no. Wait, is Lex Lang also Alexis Lang?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
There are more than a few non-union aliases in the credits.
He is credited as both on ANN. Because there's Alexis Lang and then there's Lex Lang. But yeah, Lex Lang at the time was kind of one of the go-tos for when you want a deeper voiced anime guy, but not quite a Crispin Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, heck, this is, when Crispin Freeman was still voicing, like, goofy anime boys and not growly Alucard style ones.
I miss Crispin Freeman popping up in these dubs.
But that's getting off point.
But anyway.
I think the only thing I can think of him from is Code Geass. He played a character in Code Geass.
He was,
Jeremiah,
yeah.
Okay.
What a great character. Anyway, so let's talk about the story so far.
Umi, a lot happens.
A lot happens in these episodes. Umi gets Celeste. Hooray. There's
Yay.
Caldina.
Boo.
Caldina. No, I like Caldina. She fights them, and then Fu is like, she's like, I want to fight for money. And Fu is like, yeah, but are you going to lay down your life? And Caldina is like, no, I think I'm going to go now. And then she leaves, and that's it. And she's friends with Ascot. It's nice.
And Umi yells at Ascot for like, why are you always risking your friend's life? What a jerk. And Ascot takes that very seriously and stops being a bad boy.
Yes, he becomes a nice boy. Fu summons Wyndham.
Yay!
Yay!
Woo.
But Sephiroth is in a really bad shape. There are storms for the first time in their history. I guess they've had rain, but never, like, storms.
There's definitely a subtle tonal shift through this part of the show. Like, you realize at the midpoint, like, there are no more chibis, there are no more blue skies, there are no more fun times.
No, things are in rough shape. Ferio comes up and Zagato's right-hand man, Inouva, tries to seduce him as a girl. It's not gay. And then it turns out that Inouva is actually an elemental, I don't want to say monster, but he's a beast, an elemental beast.
He's basically a Pokemon. Lightning type.
He gives up his humanish form for the sake of Zagato. And then they're attacked by Lafarga, the captain of Emerald's Guard, who has been magically hypnotized, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, he's out of himself. But he snaps out of it. And then Hikari summons Rayearth. And they're all like, yay, we can summon Ferio!
Woo, we now have sick-ass god mechs!
Yeah, and they all have cool armor with capes and cool mecha.
Yes, they have such cool armor. I want to cosplay it so badly. And then they fight Zagato! Yay, they beat him! Yay!
And then it turns out that the real reason they were summoned was not to rescue Emerald. It was because she loved Zagato, and she was thinking of him instead of Sephiroth, which was causing Sephiroth to fall apart. But no one in Sephiroth can unseat the pillar.
The pillar cannot kill themselves.
And the pillar cannot kill themselves. So it was up to the Magic Knights all along to kill the pillar. And they do. And it's very sad.
It is truly one of anime's greatest betrayals. It is one of the greatest gut punches Clamp has ever landed.
Betrayal to the readers. Betrayal to the audience.
And betrayal to the girls, who thought they were on a hero's journey all along.
That does, honestly, I think tie in really nicely to how everyone sees them and they're like, oh, you guys are kids? You got kids to do this job? And their shock and horror isn't necessarily because they don't think these teenagers can do it, but because these teenagers have been given this horrible duty to do.
It was also kind of rude that, like, no one said what their actual job was supposed to be, because it's a bad job, but, like, at least they could prepare themselves along the way.
Yeah.
It got
like blindsided by
that
it.
Part of it is not common knowledge, but the fact that this is a legend unto itself, that it's known that the pillar can summon the Magic Knights, means that this has happened before. This is a cycle of tragedy that's repeated at least once before. Because how else did it become a legend?
Well, see, that's kind of something that I was thinking about as I was watching, is Sephiroth does not really have a great sense of history to it. You know, there's not really any hint about were there previous pillars. Because this is the kind of thing where, like, it can be a legend just because the creators say it's a legend, because that's just what the fiction calls for, without really thinking about how they are incorporating that legend into their world. You know, there's the pillar who is in charge, but what about the towns? Do they have their own governance? When Caldina pops up in her Osaka dialect, the characters are like, is there like an equivalent to Osaka here? But there's no sense of geography.
Maybe the reason for that is because Sephiroth has been written and rewritten countless times before.
Well, I don't think it was really thought through because Clamp.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, the pacing was pretty breezy and they didn't have time to explain these sorts of things or linger too much on it, but now they kind of have to.
I mean, well, and also this is a fairly early Clamp work. Their background is in doujinshi. They don't need to think those things through when you're doing doujinshi. That stuff has always been kind of created for you. So this is their first attempt at creating a world. And it feels very teenager, like, I'm going to put together this world without really thinking about the mechanics of it, because they've always played in other people's worlds before.
Yeah, they have a really strong concept, but I feel like for the most part, everything kind of feels empty. It doesn't feel like there's people there, really. And then they'll show people, and I'm like, oh yeah, people live here. Outside of the characters that are, like, our main characters or the main antagonist.
But the normal people barely exist.
Yeah.
They're even beyond extras. There's no sense of like towns. There's just kind of like random places.
They really feel like NPCs.
Yeah, they do. You know, and that does tie into kind of their all of the jokes about it being like a video game.
Yeah.
I did like at one point in the sub, and I have to presume the dub as well. They actually threw in "It's dangerous to go alone," straight out of Legend of Zelda. I like that.
Was that a meme back then?
I mean, that's from the original game, and the original game came out in like '86.
I mean, I know it's from the original game, but like I didn't know that like, I didn't play video games as a child. My parents wouldn't get me a game system, so I didn't encounter that line until it was a meme on the internet. And I remember someone holding, like, it was a picture of someone with a kitten in the palm of their hand.
Yes.
So I didn't know that was like a and using meme in like the classic sense of like a piece of cultural information, a widely spread piece of cultural information, and not like joke that spreads around on the internet. I didn't know it was a meme.
Now, Millie, I'm going off the Discotech release, so that I can't compare it right now to the Media Blasters one, so I can't know if it was there in the original localization or something added later, once it was a meme.
I'm pretty sure the Crunchyroll ones are the Discotech one translation too. I do have to say, these episodes overall, I thought looked great.
Some of them at the beginning of this stretch were a little dodgy in quality, but it steadily increases as it goes along.
The one with Inouva becoming the elemental beast looked kind of rough and off model, but overall, I thought these episodes looked better than the first half.
I would disagree. I thought the first
Really?
half... Yeah, I thought the first half looked better, and then I thought the second half, save for like maybe the last 2 episodes, felt like not great quality, or at the very least they ended up reusing a lot of stuff. Like more so than the first handful.
Right. There were a lot of little bits of like reused or like just flashbacks that felt like they were tossed in there to kind of make the episode just long enough.
Oh my gosh, they were padding so much runtime in these. I was like, I don't even need to be watching this, but like I need to also make sure that like I'm not missing anything. But it just felt like reused so often. And the second to last episode, when they just did a montage of like all the characters that they had met along the way, and like some of them were only there for an episode, I'm like, why do we care about some of these people?
Yeah, that felt like a clip show without actually being a proper clip show.
Yeah.
It's weird because I think the pacing within each episode was kind of awkward, but I thought the pacing of the story at this point felt better. There were fewer episodes that I felt were like truly unnecessary.
Yeah, there was no like Hikaru has to save a baby animal type of episode.
Because there were a lot of episodes in the first half that were like, sure, they're like, making the story feel less frictionless, but at the end of the day, they're not really adding anything to the characters or to the world. But in here I really felt like, strangely, adding more episodes contributed to that sense of urgency, because you can see that things are getting really bad. It's not like, oh, we went to the Celeste. Now Mokona's taking us to Wyndham. Uh-oh, there's an enemy here. Fight it, fight it, fight it. We got Wyndham. Now Mokona's taking us to Rayearth. Uh-oh, enemy. Fight, 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 fight. Now we're going to Emerald. Seeing Sephiroth kind of like falling apart and the character's like distress and confusion at what's going on really drove home how dire the situation is becoming.
It was also a really good stretch of episodes for Ferio. They do a lot towards developing him more as a character and having kind of his own internal conflicts beyond his relationship with Fu and the Magic Knights. and he's able to help them without necessarily it feeling like, here I am saving the day for you silly girls. It's good stuff.
And so
I did think it was funny when they were talking about all the characters who helped them, and they were like, and Ferio gave us this magic device, and it's like, he gave you that so he could flirt with food whenever he felt like it.
Yes, but he also did things like in the first episode with Caldina, he helped them get out of town with making sure nobody else died. I mean, that was a pretty swell move on his part.
that
Sure.
actually, now that you remind me of that, the one funny thing from that episode was he got stabbed with a knife, and then I thought it was just going to be like a pillow or something, and he pulls out a metal pan, and I'm just like, you got stabbed with a knife and there was no large clanging noise? Like,
The knife went in?
yeah, I was just so confused when he pulled out a metal pan. I thought that was so funny. And also
He turned the frying pan into a... Fuck, I don't have a rhyme.
Oh, I don't have one either. I was going to help you out.
Damn.
We also had that plot twist of him being Emerald's brother.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I can't recall if that's anime original or not. If it
No,
comes up in
but
the
it
manga,
is...
it's
Well,
brief.
in the manga, it's in part 2. He shows up. He's like, yeah, I was Emerald's brother.
Sorry, forgot to mention.
Probably should have said that. So, let's talk about Caldina. For a second.
Caldina's fun.
I like her. So, I do have to say, in the original Tokyo Pop release, the original ones that fell apart and had badly lettered Times New Roman font,
Oh,
they originally Romanized her name as Gardina,
that makes her sound like some sort of fairy.
That's a Pokemon.
or a town in Orange County, California. But yeah, they originally Romanized it as Gardina. Not even Cardina. Gardina.
Oh, that Tokyo Pop quality.
In the second part, it was Caldina, and I was very, little 12-year-old me was very confused. But yeah, I like her. For one thing, ever since I lived in Himeji, my listening comprehension for Kansai accents is better than standard. So I could understand her really well.
The downside of that is I do feel like the whole point of her being very mercenary and being all about the money, isn't that onto itself a bit of an Osaka stereotype?
It 100% is. Her being vain, obsessed with money, and kind of self-serving is 100% an Osaka stereotype. But she's fun.
She is fun.
She's fun.
And I think in the translation on Crunchyroll, because I think I watched her episodes subbed, they even call her an Osaka weirdo.
Yes.
So they were very much aware of what they were
What the fuck are
doing.
you talking about?
But it's also with her introduction, you really start to get the idea that Zagato's minions are not as, evil as they might seem, because she really does not care beyond what she can get paid for. And there's also something incredibly sweet with how she looks out for Ascot. Literally calls him a little brother at one point.
Yeah, I really like her relationship with Ascot, which they have been building since the beginning. Because we see her talking to him in early episodes.
Yeah, the kind of different relationship dynamics between the various minions, which is also something borrowed from Tokusatsu and Sailor Moon. But it does so much to build up their characters in a limited amount of time. It's a really smart screenwriting move.
I really like how she froze Ascot. And the Magic Knights are like, what are you doing? And she's like, I don't want him to get traumatized by watching me kill you guys. Come on.
I'll just traumatize him by freezing him, and then he'll know later.
It didn't seem like he knew he had been frozen. I don't know. I thought it was maybe misguided, but sweet in its own way.
Yeah.
So, but she's really only there for one episode.
2 at the most, but yeah, it's kind of the same shame she isn't around for longer.
We could have spent a little bit more time with Caldina. I think that would have been fine.
She could have been doing stuff on the sidelines.
I do also really like, because for manga comparison, Fu gives her this whole lecture about how she's here for her friends, and in the anime she's like, I know you want to get paid by Zagato, but do you want to die for Zagato? And Caldina's like, fuck no. Good point. Bye.
And it definitely stands in contrast to Inouva, who very much wants to serve and die for Zagato.
Yes. Because he is not a beautiful elf man, but an elemental beast. I'll be honest, I did not find Inouva a particularly interesting character.
Part of it, I mean, yeah, he is kind of there to fill some time to get this series up to 20 episodes. But I don't know, he works as a contrast to some of the other minions as far as how serious his devotion is. And you can't tell me that Nanase Okawa, who did help write a bunch of the screenplays for this show, wasn't having a bit of fun with his dynamic with Zagato. Like, he very much wants to be Zagato's dog in every sense of the word. Wink, wink. Like, they knew what they were doing.
Well, it's Clamp.
It is Clamp.
It's Clamp.
There's always some gay undertones.
Yeah.
You can't read Clamp and not expect some gay undertones.
Yeah, and I'll take that over some of the other undertones they have.
And in fairness, his schemes are, well, at least his original deception scheme was mildly clever, even if the vocal performance was not always up to par. Too bad he kind of played into helping them get Wyndham, but, that's just gonna happen.
Yeah, that's how it goes in a Toku, when you're a Toku villain.
It's just a shame that he had an obvious weak point they could hit for massive damage.
That's how it goes when you're a JRPG villain.
It's so unfortunate they saw the HP bar above his head, the critical hit box.
Mm-hmm.
At least there's more to say about him than there is about Lafarga.
Seems like a nice dude.
He did not need to be there.
No, but he was there in the manga. They needed a final villain for Rayearth.
Also a way for Hikaru to show off her kendo skills.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, I'm going to fight him like a proper swordsman. No magic.
Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty, that's neat.
And again, I feel like he could have come back at least once just to support them. I don't know, hang out with Ferio. I don't know, maybe something about that will happen later.
So, they get Rayearth, and they go to fight Zagato and Emerald. Now, let's talk about some themes and motifs. Let's dig into that. So, as I was watching the final couple of episodes, I started thinking, oh, this is actually, really Japanese.
How so?
Well, so there's a lot of emphasis on what they're able to achieve through their relationships with others and being part of a group. Okay, real quick sidebar. I just want to say, this is completely off topic, but it just popped into my head, and sorry, I've got the ADHD. Makona pulling out the map and them being like, there's also a lot less Makona comedy in these episodes, but Makona pulling out the map and then being like, wait, you had that all along? I'm just like, oh my god. You couldn't think of what to do. You couldn't think of how to get them to the next point. So, surprise, Makona has a map that he was just too lazy to take out.
When that popped up, I thought of you. I was like, there's our Deus Ex Machina.
I was just like, god damn it. That's so fucking stupid.
That's the narrative convenience of having a being that could just pull anything out of their head, if necessary, whenever necessary, and then never do so again.
Yeah, because it doesn't become necessary again. Plot contrivances.
They needed a map. Mokana had a map. The end.
They never thought to ask for a map. You gotta ask specifically. It's like a genie.
Anyway, so as I was saying, a lot of emphasis on how they overcame things as part of a group, and none of them individually could do it on their own. Furthermore, Emerald's downfall comes because she is no longer able to perform her service to the group. Now, I really, really liked that plot twist. I thought it was great. I thought it was unexpected. It was really, the plot twist that they're here to kill Princess Emerald. But still, I noticed that she has abdicated her responsibility because the slightest bit of individuality has overridden her duty to their world, country, whatever. It's still very hazy exactly the nature of how the world works in Sephiroth. And season 2 only makes him more confusing. So she has to. So she dies. So she's no longer able to. Her individual desires have overcome her service to the group, and therefore, everything is falling apart because of her selfishness, because of her individuality, and she has to be removed from the situation. She has to be excluded from life. So that was something that did, kind of strike me. And I know, it of course, Japanese culture is not like death of the individual. We are all cogs within society's machine. And also, you don't see that as much anymore. I think anime has become a lot more individualistic in particular. And there's more room for individualism in Japanese society than perhaps when this was made 30 years ago. So old. But yeah, that kind of jumped out to me. What do you guys think?
I can definitely see where you're coming from there. It is telling that it's only the main villain who is the only one willing to call out the unfairness of this system. Because why should she have to submit her whole self, her whole mind, her own being, her own free will, her own personal and sometimes literal growth for the sake of the nation?
I have two thoughts with this. The first being that I find it interesting that this is an isekai with that undertone theme running through it, because isekai is so individualistic lately in the current incarnation of it. So
just a little bit.
So it is pretty interesting to think about it that way, that this is an isekai and it's the complete opposite of what you would think isekai is, where it's not about just one person getting to do whatever they want and getting to be the best at everything. This is someone who has lost all of their individuality, and then the other ones who come in, they don't get a choice in what they do. But then the second thing that I think is interesting with that then is it could be a decent parallel to being a woman, being femme in society, of you don't get to be who you want to be, you have to be this one thing, and if you go outside of that, die.
The good wife, wise mother.
Yeah.
You have to be a good wife. The model of womanhood is the good wife, wise mother, and if you're failing to be a good wife and a wise mother, you're failing the country.
Yeah. And I do kind of wish, because of that, we got more about Emerald within this. I wouldn't have minded some more Emerald episodes, because we just don't get enough of I like the plot twist. At times I think it wasn't deserved, because I feel like we didn't get enough.
She's such a
leading into
cipher.
it. Yeah.
She's there. She doesn't do anything but sit in her flower and cry.
Yeah. And I wish we had more about her if we were gonna get that plot twist. Like if they knew they wanted to do that plot twist the whole time.
Yeah,
with
it's
the
weird to
story.
say, but I kind of wish we had more flashbacks of her. Like, the
Yeah.
ones we had with Ferio certainly help, but, like, more people's perspectives on her and their relationships with her and their understanding of her.
Or her relationship with Zagato. Like, everyone's just like, yeah, he just, like, all of a sudden kidnapped her. Like, getting hints of, like, they were getting close. They were so close.
And
They were getting close.
admittedly, there have been hints about Zagato's feelings throughout the show, small but subtle ones, and until they really start laying on thick in, like, the last few.
Yeah, and also you are summoned with others, and they are your, dyed in the wool allies, is another thing that stands in contrast to modern isekai, and kind of highlights the group versus of Rayearth versus the individualism of modern isekai, because in modern isekai, when they are summoned as a group, everyone wants to fuck over the protagonist.
Or they just want to fuck the protagonist.
No, generally they want to. Well, occasionally, but usually they want to fuck over the protagonist. Especially if it's like a mixed sex or same sex group. Like the classic example is, of course, Shield Hero.
Or even Konosuba, though that takes more of a comic bent.
I haven't watched Konosuba. Don't particularly want to, but yeah, I thought that's an interesting kind of difference. And I don't think 90s isekai was varied enough that I don't think there is a super strong pattern to talk about with, like, whether people summoned together are allies or enemies. You had El Hazard, where it was a mix. You had Fushigi Yugi, which was complicated. But in modern ones, like, pretty much it's like everyone wants to fuck over the protagonist. All those bastards, so he has to learn how to go and strike out on his own and show them all.
Or in the case of the female-led ones, everyone is against you, including the people who supposedly loved you and wanted to marry you. And now it's like you and maybe some others against the world.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it ties very strongly into the otakuization of anime and manga and isekai, and the different perspectives that people are bringing to them. But also, like, it's a tragedy. Magic Knight Rayearth is not saying, like, this is good and right that Emerald has to die. It's tragic that she cannot be herself and also the pillar. And we've got a whole other half of a series to go,
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about the signifiers around girlhood and innocence and womanhood. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening with some of the character design choices.
Like Emerald?
Yeah, like Emerald. But also Alcyone and Caldina. They are scantily clad. They wear makeup. They are visibly women.
They are vain.
They are vain. They are they're antagonistic to these young, pubescent girls in their school uniforms. Even their armor is over their school uniforms. They are wearing signifiers of their youth. And that is a very kind of classic shoujo trope. Girlhood, which the audience is more aligned with, is more innocent, is more carefree. It is good. It is inherently virtuous to be young and innocent. And when you get older, you become sexualized and you lose that innocence, you lose that purity, and you become a villain.
And coming back to your previous point, you start having desires that are selfish, that you want things for yourself.
You might want to fuck.
You might want to keep another person for yourself. I mean, that's the selfishness of Zagato. Like, he was willing to literally destroy the world if he could just keep the woman he loved alive.
And I also see it as kind of like how young girls view adulthood, or like becoming an adult, because, you know, for like Hikaru at the very least, she was a tomboy. We didn't get to see her in like any other clothes other than her uniform, but they all say, "Oh, you're a tomboy. You grew up with brothers."
Oh yeah,
and there's like that demonization.
She grew up with brothers. You can never have a tomboy that's who she is. It's always because she has brothers.
Or their dad was their only parent.
Yeah. I'm rolling my eyes.
Yeah, but there's that like not demonization, I guess, but like you don't want to grow up and be different and be that like stereotypical woman. Like, you want to stay as yourself, but there's that idea of like womanhood that society puts on you. I think there's also a lot of that. I mean, especially in shoujo, because it is such a popular trope. But yeah, I do think it's also, well, I think they kind of like demonize womanhood by making the antagonists like sexy ladies. They also kind of show like how scary it is to go into that for like young girls too. So I think it's a funny contrast, because you could view it either way. And like one way is a little more like, oh yeah, I felt like that, and the other way is kind of like, oh, why do we view women this way?
Yeah. It should be noted there is one notable exception, Presea, who is an adult woman and even a little vain herself, but her outfit is not as sexualized as someone's like Alcione's.
She keeps her titties covered.
Yeah.
Except when she's doing her liturgical dance.
But even that is more like ethereal.
But she is still a good guy. She is still an ally to the Magic Knights.
And for that, she must die.
Yes. There's no good reason to kill Presea. I'm sorry. I know it was to show that this conflict has stakes, but it was just
I did think it was funny that like later in the episode, or later in the season, they were like, oh yeah, Presea died. Oh, wasn't that sad? Because they didn't do that when she did die.
Yeah, they moved on real fast.
But then
I don't know,
like
Connor still remembers.
It was very funny.
But yeah, it never quite sat well with me that, you know, Emerald is this perfect, innocent little girlish thing until Zagato dies, and then she turns evil and she becomes an adult and gets a really kick-ass villainous outfit.
It is a really cool villainous outfit. It's a cool mech, too.
Oh, yes. I gotta speak out of this, because you know me, I like to pick around in the credits, and also because I love sick-ass mecha designs. I have to shout out a guy named Masahiro Yamane. He is the mechanical designer for the show. He's also one of the key animators. So, you know, he's the one in charge of adapting whatever Clamp drew to animation. He's got a long history with mecha anime. Like, previous to this, like, he was best known for working on the Brave series, which were a bunch of kid-friendly mecha shows that Sunrise made in the early 90s. Stuff like Jay Decker and Mike Gain. Gal Geiger is probably the best known one, but that would still be a few years ahead. And he also did kind of have he had worked previously with people like Toshihiro Hirano and Masami Obari, so that's likely how he got involved with this project in the first place. And he would go on, even now, to keep working on mecha, usually more as a key animator or an animation director or animating OPs. So he would work on Escaflowne, he'd work on Tekkaman Blade, Scryed, Iron-Blooded Orphans, most of the Gundam Build Fighters and Build Diver shows, Gravion, Code Geass.
That's some iconic mecha design.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those are originals.
I should note, this is pretty much one of his only mechanical design credits. Most of those others are as key animators, animation directors, or working on the OP.
I see. Interesting. Well, because he is and I'm not saying that it is easy to translate mecha into manga mecha into animation, because it's not. You have to think about how things move.
Mm-hmm.
But he was translating Clamp's designs. He is one of those guys. He's one of the guys who knows how to animate mechs, and they are a dying breed.
Yes, they are. And so I just have to shout him out and say that he did a really good job here. And particularly, I think a lot of the later mechs, I can't recall clearly what Zagato's and Miran's Rune God suits design were, but those are incredibly sick. And the way they're framed with all the dark lighting and lightning and whatnot is also equally sick. Just, as someone who loves mecha anime, I was in absolute heaven.
Right. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, like that loss of innocence is laid so bare with Emerald's transformation when Zagato dies. She becomes, the sadness and the tragedy forces her to become a woman, and she becomes an antagonist. And she gets, she's taller, her features become more angular, she gets big boobs. I listened, there was an angler, I was like, oh damn, she's...
As does her robot.
Yeah, her robot has titties even.
Her robot's like a little sexy. She's got those hips.
Yeah, whereas like the rune gods are very gender neutral in their design. And they have very masculine voices.
But even then, like, the original Emerald is still inside her. It almost reminds me of Utena with, like, Dios and Akio. Like, she's still in there. She's, like, the spirit of Emerald's goodness. Like, no, you have to stop this. You have to kill me now before it's too late.
Rip.
Rip.
But it's also a bit of a tragedy in her own. Like, at any point, she could have just admitted that she loved Zagato, and before he actually died. And part of the reason that they went on this fetch quest in the first place is not that he stole her away, it's that she shut herself away. And Zagato was basically standing guard because she did not want to acknowledge these feelings. And she's like, if I just seal myself away from the world and pray even harder, it will go away.
That's not how it went.
It's a romantic tragedy, but it's a tragedy that they both had a hand in.
Mm-hmm. She says, Zagato, I'm finally yours and yours alone. She had to die to be able to live her desires. I kind of wanted to, but Emerald and Zagato's not the only romance in this show.
True.
There's also Fu and Ferio.
And let's not forget Hikaru and Umi. They had some cute moments, okay?
I'm sorry. I've got my own Hikaru ship that I'm going to yell about later.
Okay, Fu and Ferio.
But yeah, like Fu and Ferio, where it is a more innocent romance. There's not really any there's flirtation, but there's not really any element of desire to it.
They never even so much as kiss.
No, like he kisses her on the hand one time. But there's no physicality to it. It's just they've got, like baby's first like internet relationship.
Oh no,
they're flirting. They're flirting through his little electronic device.
They're on AIM Messenger.
Yeah.
They're like ILY.
They're staying up late, typing.
Flashbacks.
Oh yeah, God. In my day. But yeah, so they are also working together towards a common goal.
True, and
for the good of Ferio.
And they are communicating with one another, literally through the magic pod devices, but also like they're communicating more honestly about their feelings. Like when Inouva tries to trick Ferio with his Sarah guys, and Fu gets a bit jealous over it. But afterwards, they talk it out. They resolve it.
Yeah, so it is a more almost like, I want to say it's almost like conceptual. You know, Magic Knight Rayearth is aimed at elementary school girls who are at their oldest just kind of starting to figure out these kinds of feelings. I think there is a very real fear of being turned into a woman, that fear of sex. So, you know, Fu and Ferio's relationship is very sexless.
And I think with Ferio being Emerod's brother, that's another good contrast in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Of him being kind of like, no, I'm going to separate myself from you because it's not good to be together because what if something happens? And Emerald is like, I'm going to separate myself from you because I cannot handle this and I will fix everything and I will not talk to you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But whether, it's friendship, romance, or fighting against evil in a fantasy world, it all comes down to good communication.
We all just gotta talk about our feelings and the will of our hearts.
That's right.
And it'll make the world a better place. Or it might wreck it.
All right, so we're coming up on the hour. Any final points?
Taking Hikaru and Umi ship to the grave.
I have a final point. That just popped back into my head that I've been holding on to for a little bit. So, once again, this is another contrasting the anime and the manga point. This is a point in the manga's favor. At the end of the anime, when they're back at Tokyo Tower, Hikaru gives this whole speech about how she wants to go back and help them.
Speech is a bit generous, but she does state that out loud.
Yeah, well, but she says, she makes a statement. In the manga, it is just this raw cry of grief saying it's not fair. And I honestly think that is so much more powerful.
Yeah, when you phrase it like that, just leave them that initial wave of grief. Don't even give them that much time to process it.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's the end of the story. I think Magic Knight, that was originally planned to be, the end of Magic Knight Rayearth.
I wonder if the editors were like, no, you can't do that. These are for young kids. You can't do that.
I think it's documented, exactly how that happened. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm interested. I'm interested to
We'll
see.
talk about it next episode. So, shall I play us out?
Go ahead.
All right. So, thank you so much for joining us on this re-watch-along, Annie Fam. We haven't talked about how many episodes we want to cover for the next episode, so we'll get back to you on that. But if you liked this, you can always find our stuff, all of our stuff, on our links at Linktree, linktr.e at Anime Feminist. Or you could just go, you can go find our store at animefeminist.com/store, where we have lots of cool merch, including our logo, exhorting people to watch more shoujo, or being a cute trans magical girl, boy, or guardian, gender-neutral guardian. If you enjoyed this show, please consider donating to our Patreon or our Ko-fi, and tossing us $1 or $2 a month because it helps pay our editors and contributors more. We've got a Discord for $5 a month members. We've got bonus episodes. But more than that, we want to be able to pay people more. We've been paying almost the same rate since our beginning, even though costs have been skyrocketing. And I know it's bad out there for y'all too. And this year, we were finally able to raise our rates. And so we want to be able to raise them again for 2025. And Every little bit helps. If everyone listening to this episode gives $1, we'd be doing okay. So on the socials, we have we quit Twitter, but we are at Anime Feminist on Blue Sky and Mastodon, Tumblr, and Codehost. We're also on TikTok and Instagram at AniFemSite. Thank you so much for being here, Megan and Colleen. And can you guess which character is going to appear? It's Megan!
Yay!